Hey folks, still catching up. 3 more written journals to share so far. And so I'll just get right to it, okay? This is the last one from October. No, it's not. Next to the last. 10/20, the first journal, and the Mayan day was 8 night, or bringer of the dawn. Par for the course. Here comes another journal I know nothing about, consciously, that is. We have to be careful how we define our I. I'm sure on a deeper level I know. Meanwhile, that's a good reminder to be cautious, or at least aware, of what we and what others mean when we say I. It's so easy to slip into the old ways we were taught, taking the body or the mind for who we are and making our moves from that perspective. Now, it sounds like a little enough thing, but I've found that it's not. It's actually huge. Just like a 1-degree mistake on your heading for a long trip can land you in the wrong continent, much less the wrong country, or in space flight. Taking the outer self for the I can do the same sort of thing, throw you way off. So much potential we have that's hidden. But once we become alert to it, I think it's kind of like a flower, and it begins opening up to bloom. There are things you just won't see and not even know they were missed if you're defining the I as the body-mind. We're not in the now here, in the present frame of mind. Being present, truly present, is something that few of us practice, and something of which even fewer are aware. Is that possible? I guess. Yet, it doesn't have to be that way, and the ones waking up are breaking that mold. We're made of finer stuff, and we sense it somehow. And some of us even know it, which is a really great space to occupy. We get all kinds of misdirection in life. Well, that's a given. But how much of it do we fall in with or fall for? The misdirection isn't really the issue. That's a part of the scenery, that's all. It's on us to wake up, not on someone else to point us in the right direction. This being present thing is potentially very deep. It starts off nice and quiet and simple, but it has the power to take you places. Places the like of you've never experienced. It's really cool. So, if you find yourself being bored with something, anything, take a pause for the cause of waking up. I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm not blaming mind for things. Well, not as much anyway. Got to take it naturally and not get too carried away with some idea. I'm feeling more integrated of late, feeling more one, such that isolating mind as the bad guy in any way just doesn't sit right anymore. It is not the bad guy. So, let's see where this leads. Mind is definitely an important part of the team. And let's face it, it isn't mind's fault that it got put in the lead. That's how we were brought up, and there's no useful finger pointing to be done. It just is, and any sort of blaming is a sign of resistance, something that blocks the flow. life is so freaking enjoyable these days, I sometimes don't know what to do with myself, how to handle that. I spent some time musing over the drastic contrast between my now and how things once were for me. It's really like two different lifetimes. So strange. Still need to buy that squirt gun. I'm not going to tell you how I got here, or why the change, or any such thing, simply because I don't know. Anything I would say would likely just be projecting some idea or another on life, and I've got better things to do. So, the not knowing is still a constant in my journey, and I'm good with that. Truly, it's a peaceful way to live. If it gives me a twinge now and then, I just remind myself that the only 3D constant is change, so nothing lasts forever, and I move on. When I mention not knowing, it's like everything is not known, but there are also times when knowing just arises around certain things. And so, but that's not a mind kind of a knowing. That's a deeper kind of a thing. So I don't know how to explain that either. Why am I more friendly with mind now? I don't know. And it doesn't matter to me. I just am. It just feels right. It feels good somehow to have finally accepted mind back into the fold, so to speak. I know I once ostracized it, didn't trust it for a good while. So, any of you that have found another path to the mastery of mind, I'd be interested to how that worked out for you, since all we each can do is share our own walk. I'm not saying I've mastered mind in the typical 3D way that most folks would mean when saying that. Since there's not really anything I know, that doesn't sound much like any sort of mind mastery, does it? And in that way, it's not. The way I refer to is integrating it into its new position as junior to heart. No doubt you recognize how we were all raised to rely almost completely on mind, on the left brain aspect at that, thus putting mind firmly in charge of our life. It was how we made all major decisions, and most of the minor ones too. That seemed natural then. It doesn't now. At this stage, I have to say, it's really helpful to be the empty cup. To know you don't know. Can't have old memories of how things once were clouding up the now. That doesn't help. So, I'll put up with not remembering a few things well for the beauty of entering more deeply into the now here, the present moment, which is somehow always divine when you touch down with it. It may be that a certain emptiness is required to drink deeply of the draught of now. I don't know. It's an abandoning of both the past but also the future. There are appropriate things to deal with future and past, and you flow into that when it's needed, when it's called for. Overall, though, you go about empty of both. And there's a real flexibility in it. You don't get stuck in old habits, old ways, always being willing to take a fresh look at whatever presents itself. It turns out that in every day, in every way, Source holds an ongoing conversation with us, in us, as us, through us. If we're not at least largely present to our now here, then it slips right past us. unnoticed. Or we just call it coincidence, that kind of thing. It's all so amazing. I don't know what to say. I don't see how to convey it. So be sure to listen from a centered space. That'll help. I find the more time I spend in now, the quieter mind gets. Also strange, but very nice. There's a real interior spaciousness that comes alive too. Sometimes it has the feeling of infinity to it, or at least huge empty spaces inside. Also pleasantly strange. There's less thinking and more a sort of intrinsic knowing going on. Certain things are just clear, things that may have been clouded or not understood before. As long as one doesn't question that, you can ride on the flow. If you start picking at it, asking interior questions such as where did it come from or how did you know, you quickly slip out of the flow. That has the flavor and frequency of doubt. Remember how Jesus always said to people, it's your faith that healed you. What I'm finding is that somehow, I don't know how, mine seems now to get that. Where it once fought for dominance, or that's how I had it set up internally. Now it's respectfully integrated across the whole, and it's very nice. It would have been so comforting to know this was ahead back when I'd just really discovered how letting mind run things was at the root of all of my problems. Now I don't have problems anymore. Then again, I don't think I was ready to realize back then that there would come a day when I no longer believed in such things as problems. I don't see anything as problematic anymore. Now, strange again, but not once you get used to it. Then it's just deliciously nice. Just imagine never having a problem again to get a taste of what I mean here. It's good, better, and best. Where's the problem in that? So yeah, it's attainable, but how it happened, who knows? I don't. It's just the current reality, one I fondly accept. I see with new eyes. I used to call it eyes of heart or heart vision, but I'm not sure that fits now. There's more and more that I just don't know. It's really easy to be peaceful with that, though. This is a life of so much peace. Can you feel it? Those of you that are sensitive, you can feel it here. Sometimes it amazes me. There's no explaining it. We're taught to see things in terms of goals, of steps and stages, as trips from point A to point B. Well, that just doesn't fit anymore. It's so outmoded, it feels like it's from a previous life. I realize more and more that our doing is no answer to anything. Being hard to hear that, it's not said to mind, which will do nothing but misinterpret and misunderstand. Now sure, to watch me, you'd see the doing get done, but it's not mind-driven. It's not the same. Things aren't done with a purpose, with a future goal. Not very much. I mean, obviously, if I'm driving to work, I do have a point A and a point B. I'm talking spiritual things. Things are just done because they're a part of a flow, a heart flow. I see no way to explain it. I know there are some maybe many who will get what is meant here, certainly many who will get the feel of it. I can see how this is all a natural sorting out going on amongst the people. It won't be that long before the two groups, those awakened and awakening ones, and then the rest of humanity, are so far apart in communication that it'll be hard for one to understand the other. It won't make sense to them. Now, the awakened or awakening ones will understand because they've been there and done that as far as before awakening. I mean, this is the beauty of it. I think it's gorgeous that we're all coming from kind of the same space, the same programmed mindset and all the rest of it, because we've walked a mile in those moccasins and we get that. But there's going to be fewer and fewer people that get us, so it's good to zip the lip, huh? Have no worry about that, though, or any such things. The universe, Mother Nature herself, knows well what she's doing. There's a deeper natural intelligence at work, an intelligence so awesome and deeply integrated into everything that it's what is truly running the show. Our choice is to either fight and resist or learn to adjust and adapt to its flow. We're being danced. I know a lot of you not only get that, but you're often consciously partaking of the dance. Being danced is to have actions flow through you, not originating in mind. There is no separate you choosing to do anything. There's no thought, no conscious thought involved. I don't know about deeper layers. Source is the dancer, and we are the dance. So we're being danced. See? It's such a lovely place to be. I can't give you any steps to get here, but I know I don't need to do that anyway. You already know. If I know, you know. It's just a matter of settling down into self, centering and just being still now and then, and being open. Somehow, if that's our intent, we find and harmonize with that divinely intelligent flow. It has an intelligence so sublime that it's far beyond what 3D mind can devise, so it's not that. We're all a part of this great fractal web. It's deeply awesome, deeply divine. It's so great to be discovering, or rather rediscovering, all of this, for we knew it before, and we all know it within. Realizing we are multi-dimensional and that it's within conscious reach just comes as a natural part of this. At some point we just know, or we slip in and out of knowing, or whatever. It's different for everyone. I've often shared the things that seem to me to give the greatest boost in uncovering so much of this. They're very simple, really, but things you be, not so much things you do. You merges somehow into that, merges with source, I guess. I don't know. See, right now I wouldn't say I don't know. Yeah, it merges with source. Things such as reclaiming your divine identity, ceasing to identify with flesh and blood, brain and mind. Wow, that's a journey and a half, too, since you basically lose pretty much everything of who you were, or rather of who you thought you were. It's more than unsettling, but that's fine since we are divine. We were all along, but nobody told us so. Now we come to know it in a very organic way. It grows on you, or in you, or through you, or something. I find love woven into every part of my existence, of my journey. It's everywhere, in everything, and also organic. I mean the rocks, I mean everything. This is divine, as in unconditional love, which is something most of us have not encountered before. You see people going tongue-tied trying to explain connecting with that during an NDE, a near-death experience, trying to describe what it's like being on the other side, enfolded into this love. Words don't even begin to touch it, much less contain it. But then you can rejoice because you don't need the words. You find you can just feel it. You connect with it in other ways, multi-dimensional ways, it turns out. But you don't know that at the time when it starts showing up. I find this love to be what could be called the ground of being. It's that deeply integrated, such that things as they appear are just the forms taken on by this love. So this stuff is very strange to the mind, and I think you can see or simply know by your own experience of it. Mind, 3D mind, can't grok it, and at a certain point of maximum frustration, mind gives up trying. It goes through its own deep changes for a time that can seem to be very rough, even scary, depressing, whatever. But if you've got the breathing space between you and the mind, you can recognize that's an inner shifting and adjusting to the new reality that's going on there. It's not you that's depressed. It's just mind that's kind of flipping out while it readjusts. Then mind just gives up, or at least that's what mind did. It surrenders, finding it can't force you to let things continue to be as they once were, with mind still running the show. At a certain point, mind has to admit defeat of any such plan. It recognizes that you're determined to have heart lead the way, so it starts just watching how things go, not piping up much. Mine was kind of stunned. And that phase can be kind of rough as well. It can feel a lot like depression. Some who identify with mind get stuck there for a time. But even if you know that it's just mind, that doesn't take you out of the experience of it. I'm not saying it's unreal. Some get stuck, but others who are awakening eventually realize it's mind that's depressed and they are not mind. Such a huge difference between having a mind and being a mind. So they begin to get the much needed breathing space between the two, between them and the mind. And this is a huge mercy, really, for their exiting a very dark time. Yet now, with mind quiet much more of the time, the still small voice comes much more clearly online. Intuition really picks up Sometimes it'll even skyrocket. They likely even begin to discover that much of what they took to be their thoughts, it was telepathy. Strange upon strange, what a walk it has been. Now, I can't say I know where I am either. Just that once again, things are markedly different and in ways I don't yet know how to express. That's pretty strange, for I'm quite comfortable with words, but oh well. Being phony or trying to plaster over the unknown with some theory or another, it just doesn't wash. It even feels kind of dirty or unclean, repulsive, you know. Only being real will work, it seems. And since it feels so good that way, even when exposing the great vistas of what I don't know or understand, I love going with it and just being real. Others, a few steps or even miles or light years ahead of me, will be able to interpret where I am. I recognize this, just as I will once I take up the hindsight view of things. So this is a touch and a taste of what it's like to be me just now. What's it like to be you? Is that changing for you too? My bet is that it's changing for all of us, the awakening ones, even though so many of us may not have deeply noticed or just don't have the words for it yet. Perhaps you'll find some comfort in taking up the pen and the blank page and letting your not knowing lead the way in what gets written there. Just be sure to date it so it'll help you later recall the strange places you've been and what it felt like. See, that's what comes through in the words, is what it feels like to be right there, right then. I find that in changing so very drastically, had I not journaled where I've been, I'd no longer have touch with that, as today's consciousness is so distant from it. It makes a lot of the past seem rather like either a dream or another incarnation entirely. So, very strange, but also ever so enjoyable. I hope you agree. Namaste.